I really like the Alien franchise. Alien Singular is one of my all-time favorite movies, easily being top 5 ever, and simply fluctuating where it goes in that count depending on my mood. One time I was flipping channels while warming up on the elliptical at the gym and found one showing Alien, and so I just watched Alien while working out. One other guy came in to use the machine by me, and he had a clear look of, "What the actual fuck, dude?" on his face. I had a great time. Alien Isolation, likewise, made it on my top PS4 games list, and is simply one of the best licensed titles you can find. One of my early videos on this channel was a quick sketch where I pretended to review the game, and as far as my old videos go, it's pretty decent. I certainly knew how to get to the point back then. So with Alien Romulus coming out, I really wanted to do something on Baneshake, but life hasn't really afforded me much spare time recently. I'm buying a house currently, and my wife and I spent a solid month and viewed 26 houses, Jesus Christ, before we were able to get one under contract. I'll be off on a trip for my week off with my in-laws by the time this video rolls around and the movie comes out, and I really want to spend more time working on my ongoing projects, chiefly a briefish history of Batman Arkham and Assassin's Creed, both of which are long overdue. So I had to make the tough call that I just couldn't squeeze in my usual 40-ish minute deep dive total analysis the way I like, as I'd need a video I could produce a little faster. Fortunately for me, Alien as a franchise typically does decent in the video game sphere, typically, giving me a lot of choices to at least look at a couple of things for fun. I've dabbled around and played around with a lot of its games in the past, and though I just can't devote my preferred effort to do everything within a single game, I've picked 4 titles that are at least worth bringing to your attention in a more bite-sized chunk. You, dear viewer, deserve to know about these Alien games. Alien for the Atari 2600 is just shitty Pac-Man. Now that one's out of the way, the other 3 are all games that I bring up because I genuinely think there are potential audience members who will love and appreciate these titles. They're not perfect games, but they will be quite interesting for certain gamers. All 3 of these are absolutely good enough that I would be willing to come back and revisit them in the future if there is sufficient persuasion or bullying from you. I will not be revisiting Alien Atari. You cannot force me to revisit Alien Atari. I don't typically cover console games going all the way back to the original PlayStation, with the oldest I've currently done a deep dive on being Larry Boy back on the PS2, but that's not a critique of the system. The PlayStation 1 was a fantastic and cutting-edge device and was even the first gaming system I ever played, thanks to my friend's dad owning one. No, the reason I haven't gone back that far is because I am quite spoilt by modern convenience. The passage of time has simply brought about natural improvements, and that is no fault of games back then. Alien Resurrection, though, is interesting in that it was sort of one of the games looking for ways to push forward. Full disclosure, Alien Resurrection is absolutely my least favorite Alien movie. Even though I've recently watched the most compelling video defense I've ever seen by Cold Crash Pictures, link in the description, I still just can't find myself swayed. It's weird and messy in a way that detracts from the experience, and holy hell do I hate the newborn alien so much. I hate it so much that I've written a script for what will be a patron-exclusive video dunking on movie characters I hate. But that will be exclusive because I will be dunking on the Star Wars prequels too, and prequel fans terrify me. Also that using a lot of movie clips on here causes corporations to come sweeping in to steal my monetization, fair use be damned, because they know I can't afford a lawyer to fight them on it, they already stole my money. However, my first answer about the prequel fans, that one was funnier. Resurrection, the game though, replaces things like weird basketball scenes with atmospheric action horror. The reason this one is of note is because it took the opportunity created by the DualShock, the updated PlayStation 1 controller introducing 2 control sticks, to create a control scheme more intuitive to more modern expectations than the tank controls very commonly seen in the years prior. While it's not one-to-one what modern shooters do, it's not terribly far off either, making certain critics of the day look especially stupid in hindsight. Dumb bitch. The PS1 aesthetics do a lot to improve what could have just been generic brown corridors because the roughness works the way it leans into the atmosphere. The game opens up with an action reel recreating several movie scenes sans dialogue in-engine to great effect, and I really love the screen stating, "This game is best played in the dark," with a lurking xenomorph shadow. That is gold. By the time you are getting jumped by your first alien, roughly 20 minutes or so into the game, it is leaning into that as hard as the hardware allows. The thing leaps from the shadows onto a wall ahead of you before barreling at you out of the dark, forcing you to scramble back, fighting it off with the piddly little starter pistol. Even with the somewhat modern control scheme, though, I couldn't afford to play very far in the game under my current constraints, and mostly that was still due to the gameplay aging. Nothing so bad it wouldn't be doable with a little patience, but this is one of those games that has a very limited save system, and admittedly still kind of clunky aiming and shooting. And so, because I would do something like die falling down a ladder, the ladder controls also having aged like your mother, and then be sent back to the first initial unwieldy firefight against human enemies, but then be killed by them this time, and then be killed by them a second time, and then be killed by the first alien this time right after that, and then falling down a ladder again because I don't learn lessons. I could tell that, to review this one charitably, I would need to be able to give it more time than I currently have. Moving on from there, I actually went further backwards in time on the PlayStation 1. I told you I don't learn lessons. However, I'm glad I didn't replace this one with a more modern title, because Alien Trilogy has some of the best vibes I've experienced from any game in a while. Now, because this one is further back and predates even the DualShock, its immediate controls definitely feel older. These are those tank controls I mentioned before, and this is in the era before looking up and down was the genre standard. Now, I don't think tank controls are really that big of an issue, they just require a bit more of a learning curve. But that probably will ruin it for you if you aren't interested in that extra layer of effort. You will be missing out on the vibes, though. This one, despite being called Trilogy, seems to care more about vaguely, loosely retelling aliens plural than 1 or 3. And even then, you're only going to see that if you squint a bit, cause it even decently ignores the plot of that one. This one also opens up with an action reel recreating a few movie scenes, though with dialogue this time, and the whole thing is much clunkier, so I don't think seeing the scene is nearly as effective this time. Once you're in gameplay, well, first you're definitely going to understand why first-person shooters used to just be called Doom clones for so long. You'll be playing it, thinking to yourself, Yep, this wanted to be Doom. Considering the Doom franchise does have a few elements of wanting to be aliens, it's appropriately Ouroboros. It's a bit easy to get turned around or lost in the samey corridors, and with the mission recaps showing what percentage of aliens you killed and secrets you discovered, it's probably a pain in the ass for completionists. I also understand that there are difficulty spikes in the game somewhere past the point I played to, but fuck all that, I was having a great time vibing away. This would probably be a good choice for a video where the background gameplay has next to nothing to do with whatever the narration is discussing, if there are still YouTubers out there who do that regularly. Regardless, have a couple more vibes. Alright, you got me. This is the one I'm saddest about not having time to fully replay. You shouldn't be shocked, as the Nintendo DS is my jam. Aliens Infestation was developed by WayForward, who also made the equally, wow, this licensed handheld game is actually quite solid, Justice League Heroes: The Flash, which I have covered in the past. This one fits the aliens plot we have come to expect and love out of the franchise, where a bunch of Colonial Marines go to investigate what turns out to be an alien infestation. An aliens infestation, I suppose. Despite being, sort of cookie cutter for the franchise, it does the premise well. The Marines all get just enough personality from unique dialogue while you're playing as them and the intro, that you will still feel sad when they fucking die. But more on that in a second. Infestation sort of very loosely ties into Aliens, Colonial Marines, the bad one I made fun of earlier if you are young enough to have missed all of that game's controversies, as development overlapped between the two titles in time. Though it's technically only in the way both games already connect back to the movie, so the point is you don't actually have to know the shitty one. It is a side-scrolling Metroidvania, which is yet again appropriate considering how much Metroid owes to Aliens, and it makes great use of the dual screens. I really like the intro setup where you see space scrolling by, because in this current emulated perspective, the stars actually flow nicely. Until the intro dialogue pops in on the other one. Originally they were supposed to be above each other. It's just funny now, doing it this way. I commonly shrink the secondary screen down for my video footage nowadays, but this game is a worthwhile exception because of how well it handles the utility of the touchscreen for additional tools and commands that didn't need priority on the buttons. Running, crouching, combat rolls, and the like all play out with deceptive depth thanks to a good stamina system, and as the genre would imply, you'll be constantly unlocking new access, new tools, and new weapons, making more of the areas around you more accessible as you progress. It also does a good job with the atmosphere through solid art design, music, and the famous sound effects of the series. The pulse rifle always sounds perfect. And the screeching Xenos are no less than that as well. There's even a location with a very tongue-in-cheek cat scare. It does that every time you enter said area. I would know this, because I get very turned around in Metroidvanias, and it's almost to a comical degree. I saw this happen multiple times. Of course, these design elements will only make a 2D setting so scary. It's not a perspective known for its horror. Not now, version, I'm busy. The gameplay does a good job balancing the rest of that. You can avoid damage playing well, like when to duck while fighting against the combat androids that start out the game. But you will inevitably take damage at some point, and those medkits are scarce enough to keep you on your toes. Further, that permadeath and the fact that Marines get a little characterization gives a palpable consequence I genuinely wanted to avoid. Sure, it's not typically much deeper than, this Marine is a lot like Vasquez, or that one is an unprepared rookie, but I still like my jarheads. Don't get me started on Private First Class Fisher. It would be inaccurate to say I crushed on her, because that would be past tense. It baffles me. Sure, on one hand, she is a conventionally attractive woman, but on the other, she is pixels. The point is, this balance between success and failure in action has been pulled off admirably. If you're watching this video, I'm wagering at some point or another you've felt that satisfaction at successfully gunning down an alien aiming to turn your face into SpongeBob SquarePants, because of all the holes you see, in one of the many bigger screen games for the series. Maybe even one of the ones I mentioned earlier. No, not that one. Why the hell would I be talking about that one? Infestation pulls that feeling off perfectly, which is the most crucial thing a handheld game needs to do within an established franchise. Sure, Isolation came along a few years later to prove that outwitting a foe too dangerous to destroy is the best way to give it back the gravitas the movies usually do, but watching its corpse melt into itself after a close encounter is not a bad second-place option. The love for the franchise even gets a little deeper into the lore in a couple of places than many other Alien games. The UPP from Alien 3's scrapped screenplay and some canon extended material serves as an antagonistic force fairly early on, and there are variants of Xenomorph beyond the typical human-bred drones we most commonly see, though I don't have footage of those as I didn't play far enough this time around. This is also the fastest game I'm aware of that lets you slaughter and teabag an alien queen. Haha, you successfully killed half my Marines. I've also recently learned that this game nearly introduced what would have been the best character in the entire franchise. Meet Coolerbot. He is a walking robot water cooler who would have offered you water. I cannot believe they cut Coolerbot. It should be a crime to cut Coolerbot from any game. I swear, the moment I get my own game development off the ground, I will make sure Coolerbot gets put into a published game. If Coolerbot is not in Romulus, we will riot. For fuck's sake, if I found out that God decided to invent hell because he looked across space and time in his creation and saw someone had the cruelty to cut Coolerbot from a game, I would stop harping on about hell being such a goddamn philosophical failure. So the point I'm trying to get across in this video, other than just making myself look kind of foolish to the point some of you will suspect it's a sex thing, and now more of you suspect it since I said that, is that these games are all worth looking into, so you can see if you like them for yourselves, too. I know they definitely deserve more attention than I was able to give them here. These are not shiny new games. These are on older and not terribly demanding systems, so it would be very easy if you decided to, hey, hold on, why did my footage change? I wasn't talking about this movie. Whatever could the meaning be? Special thanks to my patron, whom I introduced in the last video. I actually wasn't even going to start promoting my Patreon until I hit a full 5,000 subscribers, barring a quick gag I made about it during my Garfield video, which made sense in context. But Jazz Tracy beat me to the punch before I even specifically listed what those rewards were going to be. What an absolute champion. Currently, at any tier, you will get a personal credit here at the end of every video, with the first video after you support getting special attention to commemorate you into place. As mentioned, I'm also working on exclusive video content designed to complement my channel with the things that I want to create that I don't necessarily think fit YouTube's very specific corporate shenanigans. I'll announce when I have those ready, too. You can support for as little as $1 a month, so go check that out if you're inclined to help.